So, I want to go back for a minute to something that I hear a lot that I have to say, I'm a psychologist by profession, and I find it very offensive and always have when, not even, offensive isn't the word, but not very deep, not analytic, and dismissive of real issues. So a lot of times people will say, in the middle of a major political struggle, these people need to communicate. When people may be communicating perfectly well, but profoundly disagree.
Right.
So the equivalent of that on BAI has been this overly referred to and used phrase of BAI is dysfunctional family. They're at it again. All this infighting, I hate it. Now, I don't like infighting. I certainly don't like the dysfunctional families. I usually try to help dysfunctional families. And but I don't think that's what's going on at BAI. Now, not everybody's perfectly psychologically sane, you know, on either side, and I'm not saying that there aren't. But what's going on at BAI is not about a dysfunctional family. It's about, as far as I'm concerned, about political differences, about different visions, and about some antagonistic differences.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know what you thought about it, and whether that phrase bothers you as much as it bothers me.
Well, it does bother me. It bothers me a lot because it shows that folks really haven't taken a look at what's going on. There are profound, fundamental, political, ideological, and differences around the future of WBAI that that are confronting each other. And you know, there's a struggle where people are going to the right, and people are going to want to pull it back to the left. And that's the struggle that's ensuing right now at WBAI. What the folks who are trying to change WBAI are doing is to make it it's going to be a much weaker station. And it has to be. These folks are not connected to community. And these folks, the vision that they have expressed is one that is based on capturing revenue, not based on dealing with issues. Their fundamental and primary goal is to obtain revenue. Now, if you're going to obtain revenue, there's certain things that you can do in radio that will definitely get you radio.
What are those ratings called again? The way they...
The Arbitron?
Yeah, the Arbitron.
Right. Which is something that we may want to talk about too. So they are moving in that direction now. What has exacerbated the situation, because you always have right and left, and there's always that dialectic going on. But what has exacerbated it is that the bylaws, these new set of bylaws, have made it possible for people with mass resources to wind up taking advantage of the election. For instance, if you or I wanted to run, we don't have a lot of money. Somehow we have to get our material out to listeners to let them know who it is we are. We're only going to be able to do that for a limited amount of people because we don't have the resources to send it out to do a wide distribution. But if you have money and you can get the mailing list, or you can get literature to pay for the wide distribution, you are you have an unfair advantage over poor people who can't do that.
Wait a second, doesn't that sound like the elections in the United States?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that never really gets discussed. There are a few of us who understand that and are trying to bring about some change in that. Excuse me. There really needs to be some kind of bylaw convention where we sit down and talk about these bylaws. In addition to that, there was supposed to be an evaluation of how these new bylaws have affected the structure of Pacifica. And if we do that evaluation, the report card would be clearly that they have been destructive. They've been more destructive of what is happening because they have
parity of equal opportunity.
Right, right. And we need to change them. And because until we do, people with vast resources will always have an unfair advantage over poor people. And we need those folks to become a part of this
What about prisoners?
organization.
I was telling you before
prisoners.
we videoed this, that in Comstock, in Sing Sing, in Greenhaven, I don't know about in Sullivan County, I don't think gets BAI. But in stations where they receive BAI, prisoners listen to BAI. And prisoners have told me when I visited that they've heard me on BAI. We've sent people in prisons that we know, and we know people who've sent them notice when we've been on the station on one of the shows to let them know. But people listen to Eddie Ellis, a show that I know you're proud of having introduced.
Yeah, and brought in on the count, and a lot of prisoners. I mean, a lot of prisoners listen to.
And that prisoners
on the
have
count.
that show, that former prisoners run that show and speak on that show, and Eddie with his history, to me, that's mind-blowing.
Can you
Talk
tell
of
me,
empowerment.
can you consider the impact that that must have on these guys who are in jail? You know, maybe all of them are not guilty, but those people who run a life that was, you know, a little crazy, and they hear these guys who have been in prison, who are now out, who are very articulate, who are talking about real issues, who are trying to demystify this whole prison industrial complex to show that certain communities, communities of color, are the ones that are supplying the whole prison system. That there's a pipeline from Bed-Stuy, from the South Bronx, from Jamaica, from Lower East Side, from Brownsville, and you know that's
The 7 communities that Eddie Ellis identified.
Right, and that's extremely important, and that will have an impact. It won't get measured, but it'll have an impact. But one of the other things is,
And that's not Arbitron. That doesn't record on Arbitron.
we've
ratings.
acquired thousands upon thousands of listeners who are in prison, but they don't get counted on Arbitron.
Exactly.